Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 7 short stories for you from the Tales from Tech Support subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can email it to us at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's get our nerd on. This story comes to us from dbear848. Even my friends and family lie about their tech problems. I've been a software developer since the 80s, so everyone assumes that I can help them with their tech issues. I was having lunch with a friend, and he was complaining about his Android phone and how he needs to get a new one. It turns out for the last couple of weeks, he has been getting a bunch of pop-ups every time he unlocks his screen. I asked him if he had installed any new apps, and of course he denied it. I asked if I could take a look, and he reluctantly gave it to me. I looked at the last used apps and noticed a dodgy-looking poker game app that coincidentally was installed the same time the pop-up started. I uninstalled the app, restarted his phone, and mercifully, the pop-ups had gone away. I suppose 40 plus years as a developer taught me to first ask what changed when a problem occurs, but to a lot of people, it sounds like some kind of problem analysis sorcery. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called the Tech Guru Net. It says, 35 plus years in technology, and I am still shocked at how few people understand the basics of troubleshooting. Like black magic, I can ask 2 to 5 questions and solve their issue. Another commenter called Nuther10 said, users lie, it's a fact. Asking them something doesn't mean you'll get back a true answer, thus you must always go check yourself. It's quite odd, they'll ask for help or complain, when you offer to help, they lie to you. Did you restart? Yes, yesterday. Checks the uptime, 300 days. I did tech support over the phone for quite a few years, and it is completely true. You can't trust the answers you get back from most people, especially when they're telling you that they power cycled something or they don't have a router on their network. Those were the ones that I ran into the most often. A good tech support agent, however, will be able to understand if they're actually lying or if they just don't understand the technology enough to know what's going on. This story comes to us from Garthus. Lightning struck our building. On the weekend, lightning struck my workplace and fried the mains power and also killed the whole network. Electricity fried 4 network switches, 1 router, a modem, and an internal network card. Despite the fact all these devices were in 2 different floors in this building, and one even in an adjacent building, all were connected via Ethernet cable. The service technician of the internet company who installed our new modem said the current probably traveled from the telephone line through the Cat5 cables to the connected devices. I wonder if this was the case or if this was simply a coincidence that all these devices got fried from their connection to the power grid. Anyway, it was grueling but highly rewarding work to follow cables around the building and test if the device was malfunctioning or if a setting was incorrect in the previously installed components. Since our network admin was not available, only via video call, I had the pleasure to do all the grunt and detective work. After 1.5 days of it almost working and discovering some piece of software on a remote server still not performing as expected, the task was finally completed. It was a welcome diversion. I am actually the accountant of this company and also the casual tech support guy who is able to fix random computer-related problems in the office. Got a real great feeling of accomplishment. My reward? Finally being able to do my usual work again. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Bit0Mike. It says, 90% of equipment damage I've seen from lightning has been from induction on Cat5 lines, almost never via the power lines. If you're interconnecting buildings, use fiber to avoid this. I was actually looking to purchase a surge protector recently and just realized that they have ones that you can plug Cat5 cables into. That's actually really neat because I had no idea that that was an option. You'd think that in a large office, they'd actually have some kind of protection on their network, not only for the power cords for all of the devices, but for the Cat5 cables and anything else as well. This story comes to us from Outrageous Boss 6324. We need help. Server room aircon died. Chairman cuts a hole in the wall for a fan. Our aircon recently died in our server room. Luckily, it's basically a separate room in our office, thus we used our office aircon with the server room door open, hoping to get our aircon replaced. Our chairman saw the quotes and decided to instead knock a hole in the wall and put in a big old fan, not a particularly sealed unit. Now at this point, my boss and the CEO were on holiday. Myself and the other IT guy tried to explain this is a very bad idea and were essentially told to stay out of the way and let them do it. Now we have a hole in our server room wall and a fan. My boss flipped his lid obviously, but our chairman said it works. Currently, it's now hotter in our server than outside, and we still have to use our office aircon to keep cool, and the chairman still thinks his idea is excellent. Both my boss and the CEO cannot convince him to replace the aircon. Also to note, we are a darn national company with a bunch of locations, but all IT is done from the head office, and the equipment in the server room is worth roughly $100,000 to replace if we take our time shopping around for the best quote. It's a darn mess. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Avarice. It says, hopefully everyone involved has a cover your butt folder and has emails from the chairman disregarding your advice. Okay, wait a second. Aren't server rooms in big offices supposed to be fireproof or at least fire resistant? That wall that they knocked the hole in, it probably had a fire rating of some sort to it, and now with that hole with the fan in it, well, a good call to the fire marshal might fix the problem really quickly. Or a call to the insurance company, because that hole in the wall, if something goes wrong, they are just not going to cover you. This story comes to us from Walmart Greeter. Users have been lying since the beginning of IT. This tale is from the 80s. I have a good friend Rick who worked IT at an airport with an old computer system. This computer system was not user-friendly. Anything that you wanted to do required a string of commands. Some commands made sense, while others you just had to memorize because you would never figure it out on your own. Rick got a call from two women having an issue. They had to get a certain report, and the input that they were using wasn't working. He recognized that report as one of the aforementioned, the commands don't make sense, but you get the report you want. He told them all this, and told them the command to put in exactly. They put him on hold, and when they came back, said, no, it's not working. This shocked him, because if you have the command right, it works 100%. So Rick had them read the input back to him. They did, and he verified that it was correct, but they said that it still wasn't working. After a few more minutes of troubleshooting where they were getting more and more irate, he finally ran the report himself and sent it over to them by courier. And then another coworker called. He and Rick were good friends, and this guy had been working in the same office as the two women and had watched them trying to get this report. He told Rick, do you know what they were doing when they put you on hold? They had written down the input, but they talked among themselves and decided that you didn't know what you were talking about. And so, instead of trying the command you told them to try, they entered their own commands. And when you had them read back the input, they didn't read what was on their screen, they only read back what they had written down, ignoring the fact that their screen commands were completely different. Because you obviously didn't know the report we wanted. Why call IT if you're going to ignore everything they say, and then lie about what you're doing? I guess they got their report in the end, but it took them a lot longer than if they had just followed directions in the first place. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Steven Rudolph. It says, I'm the go-to before you call IT guy at my office. 90% of people asking for my help is bitching about something not working the way they expected it to. I asked them what they were doing, they describe the task the normal way you do it. So I ask them to do it the exact same way in front of me, and all of a sudden, it magically works. I let them joke about my magic fingers or ability to intimidate technology into working, when in reality, all it is that they aren't pressing random extra buttons while being watched. A couple of rules for IT. Number 1, if you don't see it, don't believe it. Number 2, they all lie to some degree. Number 3, if you ask them to do something, verify they're actually doing what you ask them to, because a lot of times they're not. They think they know better, and they really don't. This story comes to us from Snurrifel, my first major incident. After working in logistics for 8 years, I was back in IT with a short-term contract. With rusty IT skills, I was the on-site tech, and this user got a new role and new computer with more RAM, since the Excel files are getting ridiculously large. This company had nearly 2,000 Windows units spread across the country to give a scale of the company. Handling 10 users is more of my skill zone, but I rolled with it and learned a lot on the way. The user needed access to all shared inboxes regarding customers, so that's a ton of emails. After 2 to 3 days, Outlook was extremely slow, and the issue was a 50 GB OST file. I helped with a cleanup, moved the user to new Outlook after using our IT group for tips. Old Outlook is the problem, according to them. 2 days later, the same issue appeared. The user was back using old Outlook again, and the OST file was once again 50 GB. Did the same thing again, and everything was working again. Also, added that Outlook sync 1-year-old emails. 2 days later, our IT infrastructure manager calls me and asks why and what the major incident ticket is about, since he is located in another country and doesn't speak our language. If you put major incident when you email our ticket address, it automatically sends a text to all senior IT people and managers. You do a major incident ticket if it's something that's going to cost the company a lot in losses. In the logs, only IT people had done it previously. But this user created a major incident ticket since Outlook was slow. I go to the user and see that Outlook is constantly downloading at around 10 megabits per second. With some quick math, that's roughly 50 gigabytes in 2 days. And also, the user had moved back to old Outlook. I told the user to learn new Outlook, removed local sync so Outlook doesn't download more emails. Problem solved permanently, even if old Outlook is used. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Luminous Grew. It says, did the user actually need access to all shared inboxes regarding customers in order to do things with those emails? Or did he just want to have that access because he's just so important and needs it so everyone knows how important he is? I think there's another way to deal with this one. They could just set up an archive and set up the archiving rules so that the older emails are stored in an archive rather than the main OST file. Explain it to the user, make sure they know where to find the older emails, and everything should be okay. This story comes to us from Derdobi. Software has its limits. Positive User Feedback Edition. I was working in first and second level support for some years and have an old story to share. This story shows a strange way our best tech support colleague, let's call her Julia, got some acknowledgement. After some fluctuation on the tech support manager position, a new manager started. Of course, we wanted to do a great first impression, so we do a comprehensive onboarding together with him. All goes well and without errors, until we reach our main chat software, Cisco Jabber. Trying to set up a contact list in Jabber worked fine, but adding Julia always throws an unexpected error. Thinking this is a local problem, we tried it on a different user and laptop, same error. A bit puzzled, we checked with the responsible team but couldn't find anything obvious. We dropped an email to our external support, and answer followed soon. A user can only be part of 500 users' contact lists. Basically, Julia has been added as a contact in so many contact lists that she has reached the limits of the software. Normally, we discouraged users from direct contacting us, but we had no hard policy on this. So, seems she has been the single point of contact for many users, as she is always super helpful and knowledgeable. New manager and I were pretty impressed. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called PNellyU5. It says, I was a level 1 lead for a bit, and so much stuff was, just ask Bob, he'll fix it. Luckily, the operation was small enough that I could personally talk to all local users and explain that our homebrewed software would only get better if I could prove it was breaking all the time. I could only prove it with tickets. Please flood me with tickets. I will make sure Bob gets your tickets. Queue management, what the heck is going on there? Users are now opening tickets for all issues, no changes to configuration. Please ask L2, L3 to investigate. Getting all the other locations to properly report seeing the same issues was a whole other battle. This story completely reminded me of one that we read a very long time ago on the channel, where a user couldn't send an email more than 500 miles. If you haven't heard that one, I'm gonna link it at the top of the description down below. Go check that one out now because it was pretty awesome. Just keep in mind that it was posted over 3 years ago and I don't sound the same now as I did back then. Can you say monotone? I can. This story comes to us from Donatius. Just a little keyboard problem. Keyboard is weird, please fix sometime today or tomorrow. Being low priority, I put it off and go to work on other tickets that seem more urgent. I figure dirty or sticky keyboard, it doesn't seem that urgent. I get to her ticket. Okay, a very non-specific problem. I look and the user is using a laptop. This is either going to be easy, hard, or gross. I take a walk up to our office with my cart and I see from 20 feet away the entire laptop is bulging to the point of breaking. The telltale signs that the internal battery is severely bulging and an immediate explosion and fire hazard. So at the first sight of it, I put on my safety goggles, outdoor gloves, and unplug it while she's typing on it. What are you doing? I didn't save my work. Be glad you still have a face. I'll be back in 15 with a different laptop that isn't on the verge of exploding. So into the fire bag on my cart that's dedicated for laptops, on the verge of turning the office into a third circle of hell down to the Batcave. I asked the very green intern, he's a junior and is on a summer internship, what he thinks the problem with the laptop is. His response, I ain't touching that. Smart kid. So I had to get it under the fume hood and I was shaking as I took the screws out of the laptop. It was bulging so badly that when I got the first screw out, the case visibly popped as tension released. I about messed my pants. I really felt like a bomb squad guy as I got the thing apart and the battery out and into a lithium-ion fire bag. I leave the bag in the fume hood and finally take a look at her laptop, starting on the actual paperwork for the ticket. My heart rate is coming back under control as I look up the model number to get a new battery while the intern is getting another laptop ready. I end up pulling her files off the computer once I find a charger cord that works. My boss walks in, walks over to the fume hood to shut it off, does a double take when he sees the battery looking like a hot pocket, and leaves it on. Now it's sitting in a bucket of sand 5 feet from the dumpster, awaiting the hazmat company to come collect it. Just a minor keyboard issue? Yeah, no. P.S. One of the issues I thought was more urgent was configuring setting up a remote worker's printer to run off a form for someone to sign. This user is the most dangerous kind of user. They were only reporting it to you because it was a minor inconvenience to them. If everything was still working absolutely properly, even though it was completely bulging out, I bet you would never get a ticket for it. Once OP had this laptop in a safe location like under that fume hood, they should have taken some video and some pictures and put together a little presentation for everybody in the office so that they all would understand just how dangerous spicy pillows really are. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.